how can you deal easier with social anxiety? So this is a psychological question. This isn't really to do with non-duality, but I'm happy to answer it because I'm a super wise woman that has dedicated her life to studying these things over the last, nearly 20 years. So I'm happy to explore that with you. So social anxiety could be a combination of things. It could be lots of different things. It's predominantly rising because you don't understand yourself. So there's parts of your character dynamic that you don't understand. So I understand that I'm shy, I'm an empath, I'm not an extrovert, I recharge alone, I'm empathetic, so I go into a room and I feel people's energies, and I'm creative, and that I don't want to go into situations where I'm forced to talk about things that I don't want to talk about. I'm prepared to do that for a little bit of a time, but I don't want to do that for long periods. And I think social anxiety, so I think I would be a candidate for social anxiety, and maybe I do get bits of social anxiety. I really don't really like big social situations. Like when it comes to family parties, I'm like, oh. But I don't know if, I think maybe social anxiety is more intense than what I experience, but I think if I hadn't had my learning about non-duality and understanding my personality dynamic, I think I would have a tendency towards that, because basically I'm shy, so I don't have the tools to be able to talk non-stop. It's not something I want to do, or firstly I want to do. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be in social situations where I'm being forced to talk non-stop because silence isn't considered valuable. You're considered being rude if you're silent. So I don't want to put myself in that situation. So when I was younger, I didn't know all these things. So when I was like 16, 17, I didn't also know how to say no to people, because in England, you're not really taught to say no. It's more the pressure's put on the person that's asking you for something. And so I used to find social situations horrific. So what I would do when I was like 16, 17 is we'd have alcohol and I'd just get extremely drunk or stoned to deal with it. But basically I felt uncomfortable in big social situations because I recharge alone. I don't want to talk non-stop. I don't really enjoy talking about the same thing again and again and again. And I'm shy. So with that combination and with the way our society's set up, that doesn't match. So therefore, I had to learn that about myself. I had to learn that putting myself in that situation wasn't for me. Obviously, you can be free in every situation. So if I go to a family party, which I do sometimes, and recently my father died, so we had a massive funeral. So that was like many hours of social situation, the big funeral and wake afterwards. I don't know what you call it in other countries. And that's not something I like to do at all, especially being the center of attention. There was like 200 people at his funeral and wake, and then we had to line up and kiss and shake everybody's hand. This is not my cup of tea. But there's a surrender to it. But if I hadn't known that when I was younger, I would have kept repetitively putting myself in situations, or if I had never worked this out, I'd repetitively put myself into situations that I didn't want to be in, and that's never healthy for anyone. It's like we're expected in this society to just fit in and get on with that way of being. And even in non-duality, we think that when we're awakened, we're able to be in all these situations. No, when you're awakened, you'll know that you don't freaking like those situations. That is the awakened part, is that that's not for you. And so therefore you will attempt to not put yourself in those situations, but when you do, there is a surrender to it. So you most probably get social anxiety because you don't understand yourself. And then what's going to happen if you don't deal with it is that your fear towards it will build and build and build, and you'll get more and more anxiety towards it. So every time you put yourself in that situation and you try to be the social person, you try to be that, and you don't do it from understanding yourself, then it's like you'll encourage it, and you'll encourage the attempt to try to avoid it. I don't recommend never going out again. That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm just saying be wise. So what I learned that I enjoyed going to events where it wasn't about talking loads. So I started socializing with Buddhists. Buddhists like silence. And I started putting myself with creative people, with people that aren't like that talk about things that I'm more interested in. I'm not suggesting that you sit at home. I apologize everyone that I keep talking about myself tonight, but it's so much easier to give examples when you talk from your own experience. Otherwise I have to try and imagine somebody else's experience and imagine a different way to explain it. But that's what I would explain about social anxiety. I mean, there's lots of factors, but it's predominantly about not understanding your personality structure. Like if you look at kids, all kids are different. And I was a fairly hyper kid, creative kid. I liked to play, but I wasn't particularly verbally social. And I'm sure you had your particular personality dynamics. But then when we grow up, we're taught we almost have to fulfill this narcissistic personality where you go into a situation, you're super confident, and you talk loads about yourself, and you pretend there's nothing wrong, and you're not vulnerable. But really, I mean, I'm saying all this stuff, and the best thing would be to work one-to-one. Like I don't think it's appropriate now to call anyone else work about it after I've just talked about it for ages, but maybe another online session, or you can book a one-to-one session and we can just step through it, what's going on. And then the ultimate freedom is what's happening. I mean, this is where you've got to come back to that. Screw social anxiety, screw fixing yourself. The freedom is this. But if you don't deal with it to an extent, your personality is going to keep experiencing more and more pain. And you have to be vulnerable. You have to try to tell people. Like I try to tell people that if they invite me to big events that I'm shy. You're not shy, you do these online talks, and they try to talk you out of being shy. And you're like, look, I'm freaking shy. If I don't want to come, I don't want to come if I'm shy. It's not that you have to be this, like we think of the egoless state as being a people pleaser. Like it is no resistance because everything's empty, but this personality has dynamics. So everything is empty, but it doesn't mean that you just let rats eat your flesh. You've got to be that character. So this is the difference. It seems so important to me to bring in psychology to talking about this, because it's so easy that the personality can try to be the emptiness. The personality is to be the personality. Emptiness is all things. It is who you are. You are empty. You are empty. And everything is full simultaneously. That's so beautiful. Thank you for your question.